Okay, hold my scroll, because history just handed us something so ridiculous, so deeply humiliating, that Napoleon's own people tried to scrub it from their record. And honestly, I get it. I'd want to forget this too. We're talking about the time the greatest military commander in modern history, the man who conquered most of Europe, who outmaneuvered empires, who rewrote the rules of warfare, got absolutely destroyed. Not by the British, not by the Russians, but by bunnies, rabbits, like little fluffy bunnies. I'm not joking. This actually happened. And the best part? It gets worse the more you dig into it. See what I did there? So strap in and let's talk about the time Napoleon was defeated by bunnies. Let's set this scene. It's the summer of 1807. Napoleon is at the absolute peak of his power. Like peak. He's just signed the Treaties of Tilsit, which is basically the geopolitical equivalent of finishing a final boss and then doing a victory lap around the whole map. France is dominant. Napoleon is untouchable. The man is feeling himself. So what do you do when you're the emperor of most of the known world and you're in a great mood? You throw a party. Obviously, specifically, you organize a celebratory rabbit hunt. A big one. Hundreds of rabbits, all your top military guys. A nice afternoon in the countryside. Classic emperor behavior. Napoleon put his chief of staff, Alexander Berthier, in charge of organizing the whole thing. Berthier was excellent at logistics. The guy basically ran Napoleon's entire military operation. So Napoleon trusted him completely. And that turned out to be a big mistake. Before we continue though, I just want to let you know I found this audio program recently that helps me relax quite a bit and focus on my work because, as we're talking about, even Napoleon, the great Napoleon, can get embarrassed sometimes. So to get away from that and just relax and wind down, it helped me a lot, and it might help you as well. So if you're interested in something like that, link in the description, also in the pinned comment down below. Check it out, it might be worth a look. Anyways, let's get back to the video. Here's where it goes wrong, and I want you to really sit with this because the mistake is so simple, it's almost beautiful. Berthier was supposed to collect wild rabbits for the hunt. Wild rabbits. The kind that run away from people. The kind that, when you release them at hunt, they scatter into the field and you chase them. Normal hunt behavior. Instead, and nobody's entirely sure why, Berthier sourced domesticated rabbits. Farm rabbits. Rabbits that had been raised by humans their entire lives and associated humans with one thing and one thing only: food. So when the signal was given and the cages were opened, the rabbits didn't run away. They ran towards the humans, expecting them to be fed. Hundreds, some accounts say thousands, of domesticated rabbits came pouring out of these cages and made a beeline straight for Napoleon and all the participants. Not because they were aggressive, because they thought they were going to get their tummies filled. From the rabbit's perspective, a large crowd of humans had shown up. Historically, that meant it's time to feast, baby. So they did the reasonable thing and ran directly at the source of the food. So from Napoleon's perspective, his fun afternoon had turned into a scene from a horror movie. Napoleon's men tried to fight them off genuinely, like these are hardened military veterans. They are not swatting at bunnies with riddling crops. Napoleon himself tried to shoo them away. Did not work, by the way. They were hungry. They wanted food. The rabbits were relentless, organized almost. They split into flanking groups. Some went around the sides while others came straight up the middle, almost as if they knew these were military generals that needed to be outmaneuvered for them to feed them. And if you think about it, it is a better tactical movement than most of Napoleon's actual enemies managed. These rabbits might have been trained soldiers from the way they were acting. The situation escalated to the point where Napoleon had to retreat to his carriage. His carriage! The Emperor of France fleeing in a carriage, rabbits literally climbing up the sides, trying to get in. His coachman eventually had to drive away at speed to escape. Let that image live in your head for a second. Napoleon Bonaparte in a carriage being chased out of a field by bunnies. Fluffy bunnies. Now here's the part that makes this story even more interesting. This is the historical detail that I think people miss. This wasn't just embarrassing in a funny way. I mean, it is to us, but it was embarrassing in a deeply symbolic way, because Napoleon's whole image, his entire brand, his political power was built on the idea of invincibility. The man had carefully constructed a mythology around him. He wasn't just a general, he was a force of nature. His soldiers believed that. His enemies believed that. His court believed that. And now his entire court had watched him get run off by farm animals, particularly bunnies, the cutest of all the farm animals. You can understand why this story got buried. The people who were there had every reason to not write this down, and yet it survived. Because history is like that. The embarrassing stuff always finds a way out. Someone talks. Always. The main source we have is from memoirs of people who were present. Enough witnesses reported that historians consider it well documented. This actually happened. There's no serious dispute about the core facts. This is, in fact, a factual story. Let's also take a second to appreciate the specific cruelty of how this happened, because it wasn't like Napoleon was ambushed. He organized this. He planned this as a celebration. He was in good mood. He invited all his important people specifically to have a great time. And then his own chief of staff, through one logistical misunderstanding, turned it into the most humiliating afternoon of his career. Berthier's reputation took a hit over this, which honestly, fair. You had one job, dude. Collect wild rabbits. It's not a complicated brief. Although to be fair to Berthier, there's some debate among historians about whether the mix-up was genuinely accidental or whether local farmers just sold him whatever rabbits they had available, because getting enough wild rabbits on short notice is actually pretty hard, which would mean Napoleon's humiliation was partly caused by a simple supply chain problem. Oh, even Napoleon could not escape the supply chain problems. Napoleon defeated by logistics, which is ironic considering logistics is literally what won him most of his wars. Now, there's a fun historical footnote here that I want to throw in, because this isn't even the only time animals made Napoleon's life difficult. There's also documented incident where Napoleon was reportedly attacked by a pack of rabbits. Wait, no, those were the same rabbits. I'm going around in circles. But Napoleon did have a well-documented phobia of cats. The man who faced cannon fire without flinching apparently could not handle pussycats. So there's a theme here. Napoleon, fine with artillery, not great with small, furry animals. History is under no obligation to be dignified. So what do we actually take away from this story, beyond the fact that it's extremely funny? Honestly, a couple of things. First, context matters more than you think. Those rabbits weren't dangerous, they weren't aggressive, they were just doing what made sense from their perspective. The chaos wasn't caused by malice, it was caused by a mismatch in context. Napoleon's team expected wild behavior, they got domesticated behavior, and they had no framework for it. That's actually a surprising relevant lesson for a lot of situations outside of rabbit hunting, TBH. Second lesson, even the most carefully constructed image of power has its absurd edges. Napoleon's story is one of the most dramatic in human history. Revolutions, wars, exile, comeback, exile again. But sandwiched in the middle of all that epic stuff is an afternoon in a French field where he got chased by bunnies. History is the full picture, not just the highlight reel. And thirdly, always double check whether your rabbits are wild or domesticated before a major imperial event. Basic due diligence. Come on, fam. This is exactly the kind of story we'll live for here at Hold My Scroll. The wild, the weird, and the history that sounds completely made up until you realize it's actually better documented than half the stuff they taught you in school. If you made it this far, you're clearly one of us. So hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment. I want to know, what do you blame more, Berthier for buying the wrong rabbits or Napoleon for not being able to fight them off? The comment section about to be a battlefield, and I'm here for it. Until next time, history's got a whole lot more where that came from. Hold my scroll. and stroke it gently as well. If you made it this far, thank you so much. Also, as I spoke earlier, I have found this program recently that helps me work quite a bit, helps me focus really and relax. It's an audio program. It's worth a look if that's something that you might be interested in. I'll leave the link in the description down below as well as the comment section if you're interested. If not, thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time. Until then, hold my scroll and stroke it gently as well.